Please stand. First up is consideration of the agenda. Are there any comments, concerns, changes? Seeing none. Conflicts of interest, members of the board? Any conflicts of interest? Commission, I'm sorry. All right, then, we have the meeting minutes from February 11, 2026, included in our packets. Sorry. Comments, concerns?
Not really well, I guess it's a concern. My wife's name, Kristen's misspelled.
That's
So
a big concern.
It'll be a big concern when I get home if it's not corrected.
All right. And I believe
Should be
that's in the
in my-
comments section. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Noted. Anything else? Can we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now we have public comment on agenda items. If anyone has, Laura, do we have anything? We do. Okay. Okay, so we have one. If there are any others? No? All right. Thank you.
The master plan?
It's on the draft master plan?
Yes. Yes.
My comments are on the draft master plan and the zoning ordinance. And in reviewing the parts that have already been distributed, I've noticed that there's reference to a light industry for the township. And I would prefer not to promote or encourage light industry. And I prefer not to have a light industry zone in the township. First and foremost, I didn't see any demonstrated need for it, for light industry. And I didn't see any, in the results of the community survey, did not indicate an interest in light industry. So rather, there was an expressed interest in preserving farmland and a rural character. And I would prefer to go in that route as opposed to the light industry. And I have an article, a newspaper article here titled Michigan Falls Behind in Saving Disappearing Farmland. And I'll share that with you.
Thank you.
And in addition to that, I think once a light industry zone is established, it's difficult to control the kind of industry and the size of it once you've established that light industry zone. And you could have large warehouses operating 24 hours a day with the lighting that would go with that, heavy truck and drone traffic that could be generated there. And also a hyper data center could be located in a light industry district. You can locate a smaller edge data center in a commercial zone, but the light industry would be for those large hyper data centers. And granted, you can control the size and the operation and the kind of industry that goes in there with your zoning ordinance with a lot of restrictions, but what would be the point if you have no demonstrated need for light industry and there's no interest in the community to have it? So I think you need to pay heed to the community survey results, and if you choose not to follow them, then it begs the question, what was the point in conducting it? Next, I'd like to refer to the comments or the part in the draft master plan that referenced mobile home parks. I would rather encourage better quality built houses and not have a mobile home park. If you want to have higher density housing in the township, I would prefer to focus on duplexes and condominiums than mobile home parks. I would also ask you to be cautious about encouraging alternative forms of energy. On the surface, alternative forms of energy and environmental consciousness, that sounds really great, but I think you'll need to look deeper than that. The community survey seemed to indicate that there was an acceptance and support for some solar panels and maybe wind turbines in farms to keep the frost off the fruit, things like that. But if it was widespread, they didn't seem to want that. They seemed to be opposed to solar farms and acres of wind turbines. So I would caution you to be careful about promoting and encouraging it on one hand when it could result in something much larger. And also some geothermal heating and cooling units probably would not make a big difference, but if geothermal use becomes more widespread and the use of open loop or systems that are sometimes called pump and dump, if you're discharging large amounts of warm water into your freshwater lakes and streams, you could be creating a bigger problem over the long range. A few of them is probably not going to make a big difference, but if it became widespread, it could. And I think it's real difficult and inconsistent to encourage and promote something like alternative forms of energy and light industry in one part of the master plan and then restrict it with the zoning ordinance. And then in another section of the draft master plan, there was an indication that you might have incentives for constructing conventionally built single-family homes and cottages. And I would really like to know what those incentives are. I think that's a great idea. I'd like to encourage that, but I'd like to see what those examples are. And so far, all I see is a multitude of restrictions. So I'm real interested in incentives. And last year, I spoke to you on 2 different occasions about erosion controls. And you told me that you would address those concerns when you get to that part of the master plan. And it appears to me that that's where you are now. So based on the pages that you've already distributed and examined. So with that in mind, I hope that you'll take action soon on revising the zoning ordinance. It's now that time to do that. And if you want to protect steep slopes in the township, you need to change the zoning ordinance, including the provisions for the shoreline protection strip. You have to allow for more substantial forms of erosion control to control the erosion on those steep slopes. As I said before, a number of parcels in the township and Torch Lake have steep banks to the lake. Some of the banks could be described as cliffs. Plants and ground cover are not adequate erosion controls on these steep banks. The plants and ground cover wash down the bank and don't hold the soil. People who own these parcels need relief. They should be allowed to have more substantial erosion controls. And variances to the zoning ordinance are not the way to deal with this issue. You need to change the zoning ordinance, including the shoreline protection strip. You need to provide exceptions to allow for the erosion controls in the shoreline protection strip. When the elevation from the lake increases 12 feet or more in a distance of 15 to 20 feet or less, it's too steep for plants and ground cover to hold the soil. And it also seems inconsistent to me to include a description of the negative impacts of armoring the shoreline and then allow seawalls in the zoning ordinance. It seems inconsistent to allow seawalls, but not retaining walls. A seawall is a retaining wall. It's just the location that makes it a seawall. It's at the water's edge. And you need to revise the zoning ordinance to allow for different kinds of erosion controls. One type of erosion control might be appropriate for one parcel, but not for another. And a different kind of erosion control might be appropriate for that second parcel. And other parcels might require more than one type of erosion control. So you need to build some flexibility into it. On the bright side, though, I did see a ray of hope. At the April 1st Zoning Board of Appeals, there were a couple of comments made that a culvert is not a structure. Now, I'm not sure that the zoning board of appeals really has the authority to make that determination, but if that determination holds, I think that would hold if the planning commission would have that authority. If it could help a lot of people because it would help to control the water as it flows to the streams and the lakes. Could be very helpful to the property owner because it controls the flow of the water to those bodies of water. A culvert is an underground drain line, and if the underground drain lines are not structures, they would be allowed in the shoreline protection strip, as I understand it. And another example might be if the road commission wanted to install culverts and drain lines to control the water flow off the road through a public access to a lake or stream, they could do it if you allowed for culverts and underground drain lines. If you don't allow for it, they wouldn't be able to do it. The water stays on the road until it seeps away or it evaporates. So I think you might want to consider that. So with all the rainfall and the flood watches and the flood warnings we've had in the last 2 weeks, it would seem to me that you would readily see the need to address these erosion control issues and revise the zoning ordinance. And I urge you to do that sooner rather than later. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for your comments.
Oh, one more.
Do we have any others?
Yes, maybe Parks and Rec, so not related. Just Parks and Rec, but from her. I don't have anything on there for Parks and
So
Rec.
no?
Yeah.
Okay. Did we have any correspondence?
There is a public comment letter that I put on your desk tonight.
There's one
Oh,
more comment.
we have another one coming. Okay.
Is this in regards to the master plan? Okay. Oh. Was this in regards to the master plan? No. Okay, all right. I'll get you at the end.
Is it for later then?
Yeah.
All right.
So you just had the one letter email public comment that was from today that's on your desk. I wrote public comment on the top of it so you could see it.
I think this relates to the business matter.
It does, but I didn't, because it's not a public hearing, we don't have like a formal.
True.
Is
Should we summarize for and then put this in the record? Is that?
I mean, you can just say, whatever you'd like to do. I mean, you can just say you're accepted, a letter from Christie. And I don't know.
Panucci?
Yes.
Panuccio? Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, that they have some public comments, but the subject is opposition to proposed development on the Larky property.
Correct. Agreed.
in which the address listed 3972 US 31. Do we know where that is in relation to this property?
I'll pull it up while we start talking.
All right. So that's correspondence and public comment. I think unfinished business and new business are, I believe there's any unfinished business except the continuation of what we're discussing. Agreed? Okay, so new business, the continued application. SPR 2026-01, Charles Luffrey, 3910 US 31 South.
Can I ask a question first?
Please.
So it says special, is this a special use or is this a site plan? It's a site plan review.
Correct. It is site plan review for this property. All of the uses that are being requested are allowed as a permitted use with site plan approval by the planning commission. So there's no public hearing or additional noticing related to this item. It's just the standards for approval and the plan itself.
And is there anything else you have to add before Mr. Luffrey?
Sure. So on your desk, I provided some printouts. I had asked the applicant to get review comments back from agencies. So you have some documentation from the health department, and then there's some back and forth from the health department and the applicant. The health department still hasn't provided any concrete review of the plans. They were waiting on some additional information, which it looks like they just received. The fire department provided a letter that they have no issues with the plan, although I want to send it back to them because MDOT's letter wants them to remove a curb cut, which is on the latest plan that's on your desk, only has the one entrance and exit. So the fire department should review it to make sure it's still adequate for their needs for access to the property. So the letter that you have related to no objections is on the old plan, which is the plan you had in your March packet or that had the 2 driveways on it.
Okay. Helpful? Hi, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here tonight. I'm Charles Lockbury. I own the old Peterson restaurant, as you all know, and I'm here as a continuation to answer questions and present the plan and whatever modifications have been made and additional information that I have acquired, I'm providing to you so we can hopefully move forward with this project.
Can you talk a little bit about, in one of your emails, you stated that, even if you could just get the hotel portion approved versus the restaurant, are you moving forward with a phasing approach in your approval? Are you looking to get it all approved? I guess, can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
Exactly my question.
Yeah. The hotel units and an abbreviated restaurant all are taking place, whether it's abbreviated restaurant or the restaurant itself, are all taking place in the existing building. So no work will be happening for that outside of the building. The live work units are a little bit more involved, and I have retained an engineer, so there'll be some additional site work and some drainage plans for that, and perhaps an additional well, modifications to the septic system, things of that nature. But I didn't want that, as I'm continuing to work, I can only do so many things at once. So my focus would be on the 3 hotel rooms, the 3 hotel units, because I want to finish those and get those up and running. My goal is by June 1st to, take advantage of the short season in northern Michigan. And while that's going on, and while those are being rented, then I'm going to continue to focus on the live work, the additional engineering, site drainage, septic, things like that, to keep the whole project moving. But so it's not really being phased, but not everything's going to break ground at the same time, because that'd be chaotic. And so yes, my focus is on the 3 hotel units right now, and basically what's on that plan, the 11 by 17 engineering plan, where it shows the limited menu for the restaurant and 3 hotel units. So that's my initial focus.
So can we just be clear, sorry, can we just be clear, are you phasing your request? Is your request now for the review of the hotel or the motel units
Yes.
in the existing building?
Yeah, I would like to, yes, obtain approval for the existing building as presented in the engineering plan. And then, because I know additional engineering is going to be required for the live work units. That's more complex of a process. The existing sanitary system that's currently in place that was used for the old restaurant, the calculations have been done for that to take care of the gallons per minute for the 3 hotel units, as well as the 12-seat restaurant with an abbreviated limited menu of soups and sandwiches and things of that nature. So that's what I'm looking at getting approval for tonight, as opposed to the live, work, and the whole thing, because that's going to involve more questions.
Okay, so that'll be a second phase, so we can come back and
Correct.
take a look at that.
Yeah, I could
Okay.
come back next month and continue, with
So-
that.
Apologies, Andy.
Oh, no, not at all. So I have two questions, one for Sarah. So Sarah, if the commission, for instance, were to approve the site plan for the 3 units and the restaurant, as an example, but then later, that does not necessarily, those are completely independent if later it comes back for the 3-story live work units, correct? Each site plan is independent of each other?
I guess in a way, what would happen is basically you'd approve the existing building and then you would be amending the site plan to add the live work units on. So we'd need to know, what's approved kind of in phase 1, what's going to be done on the site, and then it could be changed or modified to add the second part, the live work units. Because the live work have their own, parking, landscaping, all of those reviews. And I guess we'd need some clarification. The health department, I guess, is related just to the restaurant and that. And I guess MDOT's, maybe it doesn't change the difference because they looked at it, looking at all of the units together, the whole site. But clarification on what they're approving or not approving as well for that.
Can I add to your comment about the MDOT? Sarah?
Sure.
Okay. As far as MDOT, yes, they looked at everything as a whole. So their concern obviously would be more the perimeter, not so much the live work, but ingress and egress to the site. So the MDOT took into account the everything, as did the fire chief, the Torch Lake fire chief looked at everything. But obviously there would be an inspection that he would need to do upon everything that was going to be occupied, the restaurant, the hotel, and then eventually the live work. The health department is more involved from a standpoint, it's more complex because it will be dealing with future septic and future irrigation or the well. So they can only move so far, they can only move as far as I am right now.
Then the next question, kind of for your business plan as a whole, for this whole kind of vision that you have here, what happens if the first part, if it were approved, but then something down the road and you can't do the 3-story live work units for some reason where it's unforeseen at this moment? But so
I'd
if
be
that,
very upset.
yeah. Well, how would that, I mean, because that is a risk that you're looking at by
Right.
phasing it.
So does that undermine the whole project is kind of your,
That's my question.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't undermine the whole project, but it would be a one-armed project at that point. The hotel units are, I think, very useful to the community, as is the restaurant, because I've been getting a lot of feedback from that. The live work is a part of that because I'm trying to develop an artist type colony where you have jewelers or painters or sculptors in the ground floor that live up above. And so when people come to the restaurant and they're in the parking lot after they eat, they can shop those little stores, or vice versa. If they come, to shop those stores and then they decide that they're hungry and they want to go grab a sandwich, then they can do that. So that's why everything is not necessarily phased. I don't want to necessarily take that approach, but I'm phasing it just because of environmental conditions and the summer being what it is. So it's meant to go together as a package.
so I would say just to go down the list here, so the fire department, the MDOT, and the health department are sort of all conditional. In fact, MDOT and fire department are kind of conditioned on one another. All saying, first glance, okay, but we need more information to give you the permit. Is that a fair assessment of?
Yeah, just because Kevin, the fire chief, is looking at it one way as far as ingress and egress. MDOT's looking at it from safety of ingress and egress for vehicles, so they have opposing views.
Right.
I think that's, an easy conversation, or with some way, however they would work that out. I'm agreeable either way. And the health department is on board to this point with the well and septic that's existing, and a new well is proposed, an additional new well is proposed. So those are in the works as well. So,
Well, I think if I can pause just there on the health department for a moment, I think from the email from last Friday from Casey Clement at the health department said there needs to be an application on the wastewater. Is that?
yes, that application has been filed and paid for. That's in their office.
Okay.
I confirmed that today. I have copies of that if you need to see it. So all of what needs to be applied for, it's basically reusing an existing system. So
Right.
it's not like a new system. There was a $600 fee associated with reusing the existing system that was previously with the restaurant, and the calculations from Northern Michigan Engineering. They did all the calcs for the gallons per minute for the tank, the pump vault, as well as the force main and the septic absorption field. All those calculations have been done, so that should satisfy the health department at this point. And then as the live work units come on board, then there'll be additional requirements and probably another application or modification to the application.
Okay. So that's the status of where we are.
Sarah, if I could, if we were looking at this as an unofficial phased approach, the building's there, so we're not really adding additional stormwater requirement because he's not enlarging the building. But if we were trying to approve this site plan based on just the existing building, how do we word it with the gravel pathways and things like that in the protective shrubbery and all of those little components to this when it's all on one page and we're trying to
Right.
just peel off bits and pieces of it? I'm not saying that I want to hold the project up because of it, but I'm just trying to think there's no real good way here to word a motion that concisely says he can do this inside of these walls, and we hope that he continues with all of this, or he can't build the gravel pathway or the dock, or, how would one go at that approach? Because it's not just saying we approve site plan number, blah, 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 dated this date, because we're looking at one with everything.
Well, you could maybe look at it from the reverse standpoint, say what you're not able to approve right now. The live work as the block of 7 buildings and then the one separate one. You could say this approval does not include those 8 units and the additional septic and the additional water supply that goes along with that.
Right, but then we would be approving all of the plantings, therefore we would be requiring those. And I don't see where you would want to go through necessarily and plant all of that when you're not developing it. You're going to tear it up. We don't know where the health department may or may not require
Correct. Right.
additional
Yeah.
fields and so on and so forth. I'm just looking at this as a logistical standpoint. I understand completely what you're saying, but when we're referencing an image that has everything, it's real hard to just draw an
No, that makes
ambiguous
sense.
line.
And it might be, it's just an extension of what I said, if you eliminate the live-work buildings, and then what you said, the landscape, and because that would tie into the additional drainage, and septic. But, I would, so, yeah, either that approach or approving the building itself, some form of gravel walkway to the water's edge, the dock and the parking lot.
What I would say to the planning commission is what I say to the ZBA. You're not here to design the project or figure out what the plan is supposed to look like. You're here to approve a plan that you have in front of you for that. And I agree, I think it'd be difficult to parse off what agreement you're making with the applicant, especially because it's related to a use specifically, the live work units. Something that I just noticed, because this plan, with the removal of the drive, I haven't spent any time with it or reviewed it for the planning commission, but no, it looks like we have handicap parking in the road right of way, which wasn't on the old plan. That's going to be new parking. We're not going to allow that per the ordinance.
It just gave you an opportunity to get those handicap spots closer to the door.
Yeah, I think that's something we'd want to, I have concern with that.
I have to, I'm very nervous about this project. And when you say you want to be open in June, I can't imagine it. I think you have so much work to do. This is not.
Or you can leave that up to me.
This isn't a little project. And I'm feeling you still have blanks on the requirements that I'm not pleased that they're not filled in.
Yeah, I agree. I have a list of questions here.
More than for me. I
If
want
I
you to
could,
be successful.
if I could make one quick comment on that. I think I'm also very uncomfortable. I would say it's not our job to determine what we think is feasible to get done in a time frame. That's, I get your point. So I understand what you're saying, but our job is to look at the plan as a site plan that's proposed here against the criteria we have in our ordinance. And then in this instance, we are struggling, I'm struggling as well, around focusing on just the restaurant portion of the business or the 3 live-in units and separating everything else because they're all intertwined, not to mention the potential legal implications of what we are agreeing to or not agreeing to. So I'm also struggling with it.
Agreed.
Well, the building itself is self-contained, and if we needed to, provide you more of a comfort level with that, then we, we could focus just on that, because I really need, you expressed, if the live work units didn't happen, with the whole project, dissolve or implode. Well, if I can't produce revenue this summer from a rental standpoint, and we spend, the whole summer talking about the live work or a handicap, spot here or there, then, then that's really a serious situation. So my focus, is within the building, and that's what I really need to get approved. And so if we need to wrap our heads around just the building and the 3 units, it's just putting up some walls and doing some plumbing and electrical. It's not building a whole house. It's just it's like finishing off a basement. It's just a bathroom and a bedroom in each unit, because the other bedroom is outside in like a loft situation. So you have your building one area where there's gonna be a bedroom, and there's one area in each unit where there's gonna be a bathroom. So look at it as just doing 3 modifications to 3 basements in a house, and then the restaurant is what it is. It's already, finished. The fireplace is operational, the building is there. You're putting up a counter to make sandwiches and some electricity to plug in some soup bins. It's pretty straightforward, and that's gonna be my responsibility to get up and running. And if it's not June 1st, if it's June 15th, or if it's July 1st, that's on me, but we all know that the season is short here, and I need to produce revenue on a commercial lot that I've owned, and I'm trying to, make it productive.
So if, Sarah, if he were to have brought this in with the plan, the site plan review of just using the existing building, would things like the parking lot, even though it's there, still need to be part of the site plan review, landscaping, et cetera?
Yeah, the parking and the landscaping are required regardless if it's an interior remodel or not. I mean, there's a change of use that's happening here with the hotel that requires it to be brought up to standards. There's going to be, grading and landscaping and all of that brought in for this parking area. So that's some exterior changes
not.
for that. This parking lot looks a lot bigger than the parking lot that physically exists on site right now. I mean, the parking lot
The
doesn't
411
exist.
draft has a very different parking lot and much larger, and comes up against the setbacks.
Because I took the driveway out, is that the one you're looking at?
I think so. This is the
Right.
one we're
Well,
seeing
that
for the
was-
first time.
Yeah, that
tonight.
was at the request of MDOT, because taking the driveway out enabled me to turn that space into the handicap, because that would enable them to be closer to the door than when they were around the corner in the original plan that I presented in February. So again, if that's not acceptable, that can be eliminated back to the original plan, but that whole parking lot exists. I mean, there's a lot of cracks in the parking lot that is filled with grass, and, it looks like it's all grass field, but the existing parking lot from Riccardi's, when it was a super big restaurant, is still there, and that's why I wanted to just top dress it with gravel for a couple of reasons, and mainly aesthetic reasons, and, just because I wanted that, country feel as opposed to, paving it all in asphalt.
Well, and that's what right here it says you're bringing limestone in. You just told me you weren't making any changes to the parking lot. So you're adding materials to the parking lot to create a parking lot. I mean, you're putting, you just said
Top
it, you're
dressing it
putting,
with an inch of crushed,
right,
quarter inch crushed
from
limestone.
what currently exists on the plan. So you're making exterior changes as well to the site.
Okay, fine, then I won't do that.
And then I have a question too. I see that there's some decks on here. Do those decks currently exist off the back of the building for the hotel units?
2 of them do, yes.
So, I mean, that's, I guess we need to know which one exists and which don't. I mean, those are all changes. This is a contract. This is an agreement on what we're gonna build
I
there.
understand, and instead of focusing just piecemeal on the restaurant itself, the building, I could have done that very simply, and then I could have come back time and time again. I want to add this, I want to add this, I want to add this. I gave you the full master plan of what my intentions were, so we could all take a look at it, and you could look at it collectively to see what was going to happen on the site. Now, I could have, been more sneaky about it, if that's the word that we want to use, and just focus on the 3 hotel rooms, and then come back for a restaurant, and then come back for live, work, and do all these other things. But I put all my cards on the table, and I wanted to show you from a consideration standpoint. So I don't want that to come back and penalize me. I don't think that's fair. But I understand what you're saying, and, you may be uncomfortable about some things, but that's the purpose of this meeting. Let's try to work that through, because I really need to get building permits and just put up a few walls and some toilets and a shower and, be ready for the summer season.
I don't mean to sound harsh. I'm personally, I'm speaking just from I'm not even looking at the live work units at the moment. I see that as a separate project.
Right.
I appreciate your honesty and bringing it all to us, and
That was a
I,
concern last meeting in February.
well, I think we said the same thing in February, to be
Well,
honest.
everything seemed okay, but you wanted to.
I think we said, let's focus on phases because that's a bigger project and that's a different project. And that seemed to be kind of where you are, including in the email that that was shared with us. Just getting approval on a site plan for the existing building is what I'm hearing. The sense is we're all trying to work toward that, but I'm not sure that we have in front of us that plan for what that building will look like. Will it meet all of the requirements? Is the parking lot changing? Is it not? Are we within the boundaries? Have you gotten the approvals? Do you have the wastewater? Do you have all of the utilities? Do we have the lighting plan? Do we know what the signage is? I mean, there are some missing pieces even just for that piece. And that's not even, and I'm looking at your full site plan here as I'm pointing. That's not even thinking about what's going on in the back half of the property. Now, is there a way that we can get a site plan that focuses on the existing building that you have the right to use? And I think we're all trying to work toward that.
I can provide you-
But I don't know, you hear us struggling with, we're not, well, I shouldn't say that. I'm speaking again for myself. I don't see how we approve this whole site plan as is because we don't have the information required for the live work units primarily. The information we need for the existing building changes is far more straightforward. We appreciate you telling us about the whole plan and seeing the vision. But I think at the moment, what we need is clarity on what we're trying to get done today. And I invite, if anyone disagrees with me or has anything else to say,
Well, if I can comment to that, it was
Please.
only 2 weeks ago that Sarah provided an email, and when I asked her, are we ready for approval? She said, yes, that's the plan. And then she also said in the second paragraph, by the way, one of the planning commission members asked me, what about the other agencies? So that was 2 weeks ago. In that time, I got the fire chief involved, I got MDOT involved, which is, two complicated agencies, the health department, I got calculations, I got an engineer, I got all of that work done in 2 weeks. Had that comment been mentioned in February at the meeting before we got snowed out in March, I would have had everything, and then it would have just been down to, giving me approval, for everything. But this all happened in the last 2 weeks, so I've spent a ton of time and a ton of money to present everything to you, so you'd be able to work with me and try to move forward on these 3 hotel units. So I would really appreciate, whatever we can do to. I hear what you're saying, but just because one T's not crossed or one I's not, or a couple of them, to push it back to, another month or 2, it's something I'm trying not to do.
again, not trying to sound harsh. It's not our job to tell you what the requirements are to get this done. And trying to be, I think in February, we told you our concerns and we were trying to be clear on our thoughts about the direction of it.
Right, in
So,
February.
and again, that's just me speaking. I don't want to speak for
In
everyone.
February, the focus was on live work. You said, I can't approve this without, having a better idea what the live, work buildings look like. And I had floor plans, I had renderings done and things like that. So everything that you've requested, I've done in a very short amount of time. and worked very hard, spent a lot of money. So, now the live work units are off the table, where in February they were. 2 weeks ago, nothing was mentioned about parking lot or handicap or things like that. And I personally brought these packets in the early part of March, and you were given those. I didn't get any response, comments. If after the snowstorm, which, caused the meeting to be canceled, if there was some communication, I would have had another 6 weeks to work on all that.
But we can't communicate when we're not in a public meeting. These members can't pick up their packet and call you and say, hey, can you bring this?
No, I understand, but
And this plan is dated April 11th. So
which plan is that?
this small one that we're seeing for the first time, I'm seeing for the
That
first
just
time
has-
tonight.
That has the MDOT changes on it. And that's
Right.
exactly my point. That would have said, March 11th or March 20th. But, you could always, pass on information to Sarah. She can contact me. She's my conduit to you. So I'm just trying to, I think I've provided a lot of information in a short period of time, trying to answer your question, trying to make your job easier. I know what you're saying. I hear you loud and clear. And I think you hear me. And so we're just trying to, work together, and to see if there's something that we could do, because to lose a month of time is a lot at this time of the year. If it was
Understood.
November, it'd be different.
I think that, I was just looking at this plan that's got the pink on it here. This was provided to the health department.
Right.
And it's kind of small on here, but there's a project narrative, which the health department eventually, hopefully will approve, right? And it says, proposed remodel of a portion of the interior existing building to create a 3 2-bedroom living units for short-term rentals, limited food services proposed, up to 12 seats, no site work, exterior building construction or utility work is proposed. And that talks about records and things like that. And so from my perspective, and maybe planning commission, knowing that that's the scope that the health department is reviewing and going to approve, we need a site plan that reflects
Right.
that scope to be able to review and approve that match.
I was thinking the same thing a minute ago. We just don't have the rest of the information on this.
On
This
the-
is kind of the site plan that we need, right?
Right. So
but we
the
need
parking and landscaping on it. And,
The exteriors and, yeah,
yeah.
Well, I do have a site plan that I asked my architect to just remove the live work units from, and everything else is the same. I have, versions of that, 11 by 17.
Sarah, just thinking ahead, if we had something like that, even knowing that there's a second phase or additional phases, does that seem like something, because I think some of the landscaping, and I'm thinking about the back end of the lot, right? We would have landscaping requirements and the shoreline requirements.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we're having the road right of way and foundation plantings, those are all going to be required with the restaurant, hotel portion of it. So those need to be included. And then however the site's going to move, and then you could deal, with the live work, the access to those and the landscaping related to those when they come back at another time. I mean, essentially what we need is what you're going to be walking in to ask for a land use permit for, to go to the construction code office to get your building permit in the next 12 months. That's how good the approval's for. What work is going to be done in that time that we're writing a permit for. So it needs to be on the site plan that the planning commission is approving. And you can put future phase of whatever on there, if that's the live work is a future phase, so you're aware of it, but you're not approving, giving your blessing. The ordinance may change before it ever happens. You're not obligated until that application comes back in front of you.
Mhm.
Can you repeat that question again, or that statement about what is required to be on the plan?
The plan would be what you're essentially pulling your land use permit and building permit for, which is good for a year. That's the plan the planning commission needs to approve. And so you could have the future phase of live work and say future live work units and not really have too much detail on that so we know about it. But we're going to be writing a permit for this restaurant, hotel, and what's included with that. So if it's additional decks or reconstruction of decks, the parking, that's all would be a part of it. The project narrative talks about 12 seats. The dining on the plan we have has a lot more than 12 seats. So even some of that, we kind of just need to get the application, the site plan, and this most recent plan from the health department to all be the same. Because in the end, the township wants to know what we're agreeing to, and you want to know what's also being approved, so everybody's on the same page and there's no discrepancies between the two.
Yeah, it's just, it's hard to get a lot accomplished because I can't talk to the planning commission.
Right.
You're at the township one day a week.
Well, I can't comment for the planning commission. I can
No,
tell you
but
what I
as
think
far
they
as-
may be able, want or need, but
If there was marching orders, I could get that done very quickly. But if it's not done right now in a vacuum, then we're looking at minimum of 30 days.
It seems to,
Unless I'm wrong.
it seems to me that what the planning commission needs to evaluate a site plan for the three, what are we calling it? The
hotel.
hotel.
Hotel
and restaurant as
Right.
currently defined. We need a site plan for that. And, you have criteria in your mind because you've got future phases. And those future phases, there might be some exceptions, but those future phases would likely be more parking, more runoff, abilities to manage runoff, different well and septic and all those things. Those things are there. In other words, the criteria for the future phases is more rigorous than the criteria for the first one. So if we had a site plan that met the criteria for that initial restaurant, and if there's other stuff put in there, like parking spaces, unless it violates an ordinance, if there's extra parking spots in there because you decide to make it bigger for down the road, so to speak, as long as it meets the criteria for the site plan as a restaurant and hotel, if we had that, then we can evaluate that and vote on that. And then that would be the approval, assuming we agreed that we'd have that approval.
I don't need-
As Sarah said, it's kind of this, but with the site plan, right? It was, yes.
Well, technically, I don't need any additional parking for the 3 hotel units. If we just, if we were to focus on that, say tonight, getting approval for the 3 hotel units, the septic is already there, the calculations have been done. So everything's good to go on those. You could give conditional approval on the 3 units, just so I could, start working on the building permit. And then, as far as the restaurant or the additional parking, then I can provide all that to you for next month. I could have the whole kit and caboodle. My engineer's already working on it. They were out, today surveying for existing conditions and ready to move forward, with all that. It was tough to do everything in a 2-week window. And, I wish that I had, no more. And, it would have been great if we didn't get snowed out in the last meeting, that would have saved a month. But now we're, these plans were originally submitted, the end of December. I was hoping to meet in January. I know you don't, I found out that you don't meet in January, and then March, was a gut punch. So, timing is a factor. So if there's anything that you can, do, I would forego the approval for the restaurant or, anything just to keep it simple. Just do the 3 hotel units just so I can get a building permit. And, no site work needs to be done for that. That's just a couple stud walls and a bathroom in each unit. And with no additional parking, because the parking for that is, maximum 3 cars in it. They got plenty of room for that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not really able to negotiate compromise on what we have. We need a site plan that we can approve, and as Sarah says, it's a contract between the township and you, and we both need to be clear on what it is, and given the timing, I feel like this is still in flux. I mean, there are still changes that need to be made even to what you presented here, and again, what we need is this with the full site plan that meets all the requirements and has all of the information required by the statute.
We'll have that.
By the
and I'll
ordinance.
expect to have full approval and including the live work in the May meeting, then I'll have everything. And I'll need to talk to Sarah. I'll need a list of everything that's required. If that's what you're requiring, and if you're not, willing to even work with me for a month, then.
I mean, these are the same requirements that were there all along. These are the ordinance, and it's unfortunately, it's not our role to negotiate, and it's our role to tell you what is required. You can read the ordinance as we can. We have Sarah here to help, and I'm sure that she would be happy to do so. But I'm not sure that we can go any further. If anyone else has a different opinion or has other comments.
Is there any, is there anything on? Oh, thank you. Thank you for the reminder. Is there anything that's included on here, or do we see anything missing that we could say? And like I see that there's the berming, or, something there that we had asked for last time. So cool on that. Is there anything that we're seeing is missing, or that you could bring up for the parking for that specific thing?
Yeah, so the staff report, which is in the packet, and it has, it was similar, it was in the last packet in February too, is marked in red with items that are not provided for the site plan. So there's some of the calculations on the lot coverage. The front setback is a big item to be on there, and then some other details should be provided for that. I haven't had a chance, this handicap parking, because that's new and that's not new to this plan. That's just off of looking at it, that's a concern. We're not going to allow for new parking to be out in the road right away for the existing. And then I don't know about this drive, the gravel drive that goes into the live work. I'm going to assume that's going to come off in this first phase, but that road I was just looking it up. That road's a public road, so the road commission will need to be involved in that access versus MDOT.
Is that the side road? Is that
Yeah.
Thierry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was private, and then when we were sitting here in the meeting, I looked up the county road maps, and that is a county road for that. But that issue may get resolved if that comes off with the live work units anyways for that.
You lost me on that. You say it's a county road, Theory Circle
Yeah.
is a county road?
Yeah, so you'll need to deal with Antrim County for that access point instead of MDOT.
Okay, well, these are things that, if you're commenting now, why weren't they commented on in February? When I would have had more time.
That's something like I just mentioned. I just noticed it at the meeting. I thought it was private. It occurred to me to double check it, and I found that it was a public road. So
Okay, but
that's
you're
public road.
just finding that out.
But this isn't our job to tell you.
So-
Again, I'm not trying to be,
Right, but what I'm trying to say
Kurt,
is,
but-
there could be, a missing dot or a missing cross T, and then it's a new month every time that so I'm just trying to, it's frustrating from my standpoint because
okay, so Sarah, if we got a site plan, I wasn't clear if we all answered this. A site plan that just included the building, expectation that the live work would come later, but it may not include all of the landscaping and the shoreline. Do you think there's a way that we could approve that with conditions for future? Do you see what I mean?
Tonight or?
I don't think we can,
Okay,
again, my opinion, I'm not sure we can approve anything tonight, but if we had a future site plan that just involved the existing building and the necessary, parking lot, the plantings,
Yeah.
the blah, 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 blah. But it didn't include all of the screening
Right.
and the other things that would be required because of the live work.
I think we're getting closer, although he did end and say that in May, it's all going to come back. So, I mean, I think
Yeah,
just
I-
like, our comments keep changing. Every time we get a new plan, you look at it again,
Right.
right?
I think
And
it's,
so-
I think it's to us, and from his, he has a completely different perspective on this. From us, if we have a site plan for the restaurant with the units in it, as soon as we can, that we can get back together, we can review that for potential approval if it meets the criteria. Everything else for those is irrelevant to us because we're not looking at it.
That's what I'm thinking, as long as it
Exactly.
doesn't, it
Yeah,
doesn't
that-
involve
but that
other
would be-
requirements that
That's right.
can we put
And
those
that-
to the side
and
for a
That would
moment?
be up to him. He'd be taking the risk
Mhm.
of bringing that forward. We approve what we see, and if it meets the criteria for the restaurant, we're good. Assuming he comes back later with the second phase or whatever that is, with the live-in units,
Mhm.
then we evaluate that in the context of what he's already done, and he'll have more time to do that. And address septic, well, runoff, all those types of things. He'll have to address that anyway. So from our perspective, we look at it only for what we get at
Right,
the time.
yeah, no,
And-
it's
and
what's,
then-
it's what's on the
Yeah,
paper,
yeah.
that's what we
And
have to
he-
approve. Yes.
He will likely, from his frame of reference, create his plan so he can bring that in later. That's what he will do, but we won't even have to evaluate that unless it's in conflict for the plan that's in front of us at that point.
Mhm. I'm just concerned that there won't be sufficient, the shoreline screening and the other requirements on the property, and I want to find a way to approve accepting that or, conditional on future changes or see what I mean? Yeah.
So I can bring a plan that, I was trying to be considerate to the township and to the board and lay all my cards on the table. Now it's coming back to bite me because had I brought the plan and in February and said, I want to do these 3 units, what's required, I would have had, 3 parking spots out front, and the units themselves, and we could have focused on that. Now we're focusing on a lot of different roadways and other things like that are going to hold it up. So, and I'm hearing 2 things. So I'm thinking I either take everything else off the plan and come in May and show you the 3 hotel units, and we focus on that, and I have to deal with Sarah and make sure that everything's dotted and crossed accordingly, so you can get approval on that. Whether I have a live work unit, they're not gonna be up and running by June 1st. So I thought I was, doing a good thing, presenting it to the township and to the board, but now that's hurting me because you're looking at, there's so many things to look at, which I don't have a problem doing, and I knew I would have to do it. But it just doesn't seem fair and right that, I can't get conditional approval from the board tonight. You could say, we give you permission to move forward with the renovation of the interior units. And then in May, we'll look at everything else, providing these conditions are met. So I don't see why there can't be a conditional approval, in regards to that.
There are not conditions, again, it's not our job to design it. We look at it, make sure that it adheres to the ordinance and fits within the master plan, and you have the necessary approvals, and we can approve a site plan. We don't have a site plan that we can approve for a variety of reasons, because you have some items on here that don't fit the ordinance. We're still missing information on the basic, and we are not anywhere near enough information on the live work units to approve those. Again, it is a contract, right? You are signing a contract with the township we need to make sure that we followed the ordinances that are in place. That's our role. And you have to bring us that plan that fits the ordinances, and I think we'd be more than happy to move ahead. My opinion, I'm not speaking for the commission.
Everything is on that plan. It's like buying a car, without the sunroof and without the CD player and without the additional rims. I just want a basic car right now, and then we can talk about the sunroof later, but the car's not going to change.
Right.
You've been presented with everything, so there's no way that you can allow me to move forward with the 3 hotel units at this point until we reconvene in May.
I think it's fair to say, as far as I can see, on this latest site plan, the 411 site plan, there are items that do not meet the ordinance.
Can you give me an example?
Well, the parking for one. And again, we're missing, what did I say, lighting and signage, and I think we have
Lighting,
some
we talked
utilities, water supply, the trash screening. There's some other items.
The trash is there, screening is there, that hasn't changed. The lighting, we talked about, there'll be coach lights on the building. We talked about not having light poles in the parking lot because I didn't want it to look like a Meijer or a Walmart. We talked about the sign is existing. The name on the sign is going to change, but nothing's going to change to the sign. So,
Right. So just like when you buy a car, that's all written down, right? And it's on a piece of paper, and we can look at it and say, that meets the ordinance, that's approved. That's what we need.
okay, well,
And you have an architect, I believe? Is this
yes,
Runkle? Yeah.
right. I just don't want to miss anything and then have you come back like, oh, you didn't include, a doorknob, so we can't approve the contract.
It's in the packet.
One thing we could do,
It's on mine.
maybe to help speed it up, is there any reason we couldn't have a meeting sooner than a month from now?
No, if we can get the planning commission together, we'd have to get the documents in and then
Right.
be able to get the packet out and have a meeting if we can get a quorum together.
What's our notice requirement?
18 hours
Okay, we
for
don't
a
need a,
special. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because this is not a special use, it's a.
Right,
yes.
right. I just wanted to make sure that we
No,
were
that's a
within
good
them.
point.
Yeah.
So that would be another, that if he came back with everything, then we could look at it at that point.
That would help. Anything would help. Yeah.
Right. And so what we would need is you'd have to get the documents in so that I can get them in a packet. Then we'll schedule the meeting once we get them in, and we have to be able to get a group together. So when you turn them in, we're not having a meeting in 18 hours. That's when it starts, the polling of the planning commissioners to see if they're available based on the schedule and the room availability and other meetings. We would look at a special meeting after that.
Right, but I would like feedback from you as far as the landscaping that I did is, to my knowledge, meets the criteria based on the right-of-way footage, 1 tree every 30 feet. There's 56 shrubs, the plantings around the building, all of that should meet the requirements per the ordinance of what I have on the plan. So that's one thing that I would like, to be analyzed and checked. And if I need to add a tree or subtract a tree, I'd like to do that at the same time.
Okay.
And I'll talk with MDOT and the fire chief and get them on the same page and make a decision. I can move those handicap spots back to where they were. They'll be a little further from the door. I thought that was a great opportunity to, utilize that space because they don't have to cross a driving lane where the handicap will go back to. If somebody's in a wheelchair, they have to cross over that ingress egress area to the parking lot. This way, they were kind of like in their own little pocket.
Yeah. So what I'll tell you is that the
And that's
park,
existing paving. Sorry to interrupt you. That was existing paving that's there right now.
one, I guess if that's the current ordinance allows you to have parking in your side and your rear yards and outside of the front setback, which is 50 feet. If you want to put anything within that front setback on here for parking, you're going to need to show us what currently exists and then what you want to do, because you're not going to be able to change it. You can use the area that currently exists, but you can't add to it. You can't expand that because it's non-conforming.
Right, yeah.
And you
that-
can't change it.
Right.
Right,
So you need to
I-
provide that documentation to us that says it currently exists so that we know it's there.
Right, and you can probably see it on the site plan. The driveway, the approach that MDOT was asking me to remove, I removed up until the parking spots, and I used that existing pavement. I converted it, connected the landscaping.
I see.
So,
Well, that is not existing parking. That was an existing driveway and access. Well, you're not going to get those handicap spots in that place.
that's fine, I can put it back, no, doesn't matter to me, it just hurts the handicap people.
Okay, so my open-ended suggestion would be maybe 2 weeks is the best option that we have for a special meeting if we have everything in hand
Right.
and are able to distribute materials
Right.
and assuming others are available, I have no idea. In my experience, architects can usually help with site planning and review of ordinances and help make sure that the plan is right the first time, because I understand you fully appreciate you don't want to waste time, and neither do we.
I appreciate that.
I'm not sure this is worthy of a motion, but I think we're going to continue this to a following meeting if there are no objections. Agreed? All right, thank you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, my engineer and architect are amazing, and they're all, primed, ready to help us move forward. So I will be able to get things turned around very quickly. And Sarah, if you and I can stay in contact to make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted to make the
Right.
contract ironclad, that'd be great.
I think you should lean on them. You're paying them. They ought to give you some service.
Exactly. No, they're awesome.
Great, okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you. Oh, I almost overlooked it. Okay, master plan review.
Yeah, so this is kind of there's more right here. Oh, no, that's just the agenda. It's online. It's in the packet on the township website.
So is a recording of this meeting.
So the planning commission, we've been working on the master plan last year to get back into it. You did receive a draft plan that had all the chapters, and that was all the background information that we've just been kind of compiling and putting together for you to help build your future land use map and your action items and your implementation. So tonight, we're going to talk about your future land use and then implementation as far as we get on that for you. So I'll start with the future land use map that's in your packet. This is a draft. This is just based on your existing future land use map, but I asked Tech put it to property lines instead of, if you look at it, your existing map, it kind of is squiggles. And I know that's a real technical term, but it doesn't follow the property lines. So it can be more difficult to, when you're dealing with a property that has two districts on it, and, it's kind of hard to put it all together when you do that. So I like to do it on parcel lines. I'm not married to it though. So if you want to go back to something that has more, isn't so sharp with the parcel lines, we can do that. We did add on to this an environmentally sensitive overlay. So your zoning map has a wetlands district on it, and there's setbacks from that. So as mentioned on this draft map, the layer is your high-risk erosions, your critical dunes and wetlands, all combined into one layer, and that's kind of the hatched part of it. Ideally, in the future, what would happen is you would say, this area, we have data to say that there may be one of these items on it. you need to provide us more information or documentation when you're building on this property. And that'd go on the zoning side of it, but essentially it's a place that says there's something happening here and it's naturally
That's what I wanted to ask. What
sensitive.
does that mean? So
Yeah. And so
Eagle has some authority, I guess, over that. Is that a fair way to?
it may, and these are maps that are based on soils and topographies and very broad brush surveys. So we can't, we wouldn't want to use this map and say that line right there is a half mile off the road and that's where the wetland starts. No, this map is saying, based on the information we have, we believe there's something here.
Over there is squishy. Yeah.
Right, but you need to get Eagle involved or have a wetland survey or have a critical dunes assessment to figure out exactly what's going on there.
So if someone came with a plan that was in one of these hashed areas, that would be an additional consideration we would have.
Right.
So would it
Before-
make sense to make those match the property parcels like you did the colors? Because the hash marks might go across one tiny corner of 40
Yeah.
acres. Whereas if it's supposed to send a flag up the pole, maybe that hash mark should go through the entire 40 acres. So then in the future, if I show up to pull a permit, the flag goes up that, wait a second, that might be on 40 acres, that might have 2 acres of wetland on it, but I better check into it.
That was along the lines of what I was thinking. What does that mean? Is there some?
Right, because there's quite a few parcels, some of which I even own, but I'm looking at them going, yeah, I understand it's wet right there. But if you just took my word for it and said I was going way over here in the corner,
Right.
maybe the whole parcel should be flagged, so to speak. I know that Eagle has done that along Grand Traverse Bay and various other places around the county. That I love how you've broken the colors up to actual parcels. But if our hash marks are gonna go, maybe they should go parcel to parcel.
Let me have the GIS tech do that and see what it looks like. I'm concerned that then the whole map is just gonna have hash marks on it.
Yeah.
And, but let's look at it and see, because we don't know until we try it, for that. So I will ask them.
And that would be ideal. If for some reason the whole thing is just hash marks, then maybe a fallback would be, can we kind of hard code in that pretty much in the ordinance, anything that you do, you have to check with those bodies.
Right.
And it's almost like by default, it's a quick phone call. And if Eagle says, hey, we don't have any jurisdiction, boom, it's done.
Is that kind of a pre-approval or pre-look, or I don't know if that's
Well, for anything that comes before this group as an example, I mean, when things that we've seen before, we pretty much always default to look at it anyway. And if it's not something that comes forward, it's up to we won't know unless they have to come forward to Sarah.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's up
Can
to
we
them,
say
and
you need to go
she
call
should
them
say, hey,
first?
You might want to check because, by the way, it's
Yeah.
on the back corner of your property. Ideally, what you said, I think would be perfect. But if we can't, then.
Right.
that
I just would like to see what it looks like
Yeah.
if we did that. Because I've even run into it with Eagle before and, they want a clothesline. Well, wait a second, you need a permit for that.
Yeah.
What do you mean you need a permit for that? Well, this property's flagged as high risk erosion. Oh, I didn't know until someone brought it to my attention that I had to ask the powers that be for something as simple as that. And
Yeah.
it'd be real hard for the general public to look on our website at the zoning map and say, well, I'm not in that hash mark, so that doesn't apply. When in fact it might.
Yeah.
And so if we add this on here, it's cool. We don't have anything today that references or like allows us to do anything off of it today and anything that we've got. So,
We have, the zoning map does have the wetlands
yeah.
marked on it to say that, that area, you have some additional considerations when you're building on them. But we don't include the high risk erosion and the critical dunes, which has become a bigger issue more recently for us. So we will have to make some changes in zoning to fully implement kind of what this map is telling us for some of the environmental component.
Sarah, what has changed on this relative to the current?
Yeah, I have some questions about that.
Yeah, the biggest thing is that
Seems cleaner.
it is because it's more based on the parcel lines. A lot of it's very similar to what's on your map. You know, along the lake shores, you have the residential. Through the middle, you have the timber and the agriculture, you know, your greens. And then you kind of have your village areas with the pink. And we have them as commercial residential, or the dark red is commercial industrial components. And so it's
Well,
it's
yeah.
close to your zoning map, and it's close to your existing future land use. And it was really intended to be kind of a starting place for you. You can make any changes that you'd like to it, because this is your future, but it doesn't become effective until you put it in your zoning map.
Right. So you simplified some parts, right? Combined residential into one zone, even
Yeah.
though they're R1, R2.
Mm-hmm.
What is up at the very northern border on Bennett Road? There's this big box that's marked as commercial industrial. That's,
The very north property there.
yes, which was not on the prior map, and I'm confused what that is, because I think it's open
Eastport
land.
Market, isn't it? I think that's
No, it's way
No,
beyond
north
that.
of there, it's off of the corner of Old Dixie and Lower Road.
Hmm.
I think it's even north of there. It's the,
Well, and it is pretty wet. Right
Yeah, so, but it's marked as commercial industrial. I
That's
don't
what I was
know.
gonna say.
There's
Yeah,
definitely
it's on
nothing
the
there,
map.
but I don't know
No,
why it would be zoned that way.
Yeah, and that was on, that comes from your existing future land use map. That's where, right at that part of the township, you put, well, not you, the township has on the future land use map, commercial industrial there. And so I think that's a good example of, is that what you really want there? Or does that make sense, knowing and seeing the hatches that are going on there to put
right,
your
the
commercial?
environmental impact, if you're gonna do any sort of commercial or industrial
Right.
in a primarily wetland designated zone.
Right.
So what happens if, take that portion that was just brought up, wanted to change it to something else, recreational or timber or whatever, then the landowner that's there today says, well, wait a minute, you can't just change it. That means if that owner wanted to do something based on whatever that's zoned today, what happens?
Yeah, so the zoning on that, oh, I was gonna tell you what the zoning on that property was, and my Adobe just crashed. Give me just a second here. The zoning on that property right now is agricultural. So they would need to comply with the uses that are in the ag district. But if they came into you and said, I want to rezone this to commercial, you would look at your future land use map and say, your future land use map says, we want this to be commercial. And you would need to, you have a really hard case saying no to them because the future land use and the policy says this is where we want our commercial to be.
Precisely. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's where we want to make sure that this is representative of where we want it in the future. For obviously, that's what it's named, but also just
Yeah.
in practice, when somebody wants to
and
do
that
something.
might
we
be
have-
Unless we put conditions on future use,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you
Right.
could say, subject to utilities or something.
And I think you'd want to consider, the future land use also has, the red dots kind of up along 31. That is where most of those are where there is current commercial uses, but some of those commercial uses are actually tied to agriculture, right? So down on Cresswell, that's it's a farm stand. If we dealt with farm stands or farm markets in the ag district versus the commercial district, because commercial is commercial, all of the uses, a restaurant, a hotel, live, work, like we talked about tonight, go to commercial, not to agriculture. And so I think, and plus it does this is your future land use map, but you don't want to zone like this because you have one parcel. It looks very, very much like spot zoning throughout your
Right.
corridor. So I'd rather see you kind of group uses and districts together instead of,
So could we do an ag commercial or, I don't remember what the,
yeah. I think that's a valid conversation to have about either having a district along 31 that deals with commercial uses that are agriculturally related, or looking at the ag district in general and allowing some commercial uses. I think if you did that commercial district in the ag, you could focus kind of on the corners potentially, where there's already existing agricultural. And for those, you'd probably say like retail agricultural, more so than
Yeah, more than commercial, or more
Right.
than, yeah.
like some processing or things like that, where you're looking at
But I
traffic.
would think that you would have to be a little careful, of not just allowing that along 31.
Mhm.
Because how many times have we all got drugged to a fall festival or whatever the case, it's on a secondary road, but it has a great corn maze or this or that. And if the master plan wants us to keep as much agricultural character as possible, in my mind, we need to allow that anywhere there's agricultural, not just on the 31 corridor.
I agree.
And to your point, I'm thinking there is some down toward the south end.
Towards the south end, going towards Grand Traverse Bay.
I mean, there are some things down there that don't show up here, right? If I'm
Right,
looking at the map
So if
correctly.
we're going towards the future and we're trying to keep the rural character, maybe this group needs to look at all of the agricultural parcels and say, are we limiting them too much except for unless they're on 31? Because over time, that would change the character of the community if they couldn't continue in ag because they couldn't sell pumpkins or whatever the case was over time.
So I think saying the same thing, but maybe just a little differently from, if there's agricultural land, we just want to make sure that the uses of that fit in with the types of things you're describing. And then it covers all areas, whether it's on 31 or off of 31.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a map look, but it's also a look at the parameters or definitions of each of these.
Right. And you will have, like I said, some changes to do. So like when I look in your ag district and your zoning ordinance, and I'm sorry to keep going back and forth, but that's where we're headed with this future land use map, right? So we don't even allow farm markets in the ag district. So that's one of those things, our recommendation and implementation is that we want to make sure to call out the specific conversations about these agricultural uses being allowed in the ag district, not limited to 31 in commercial, and updating our ag district use table and the zoning ordinance so that we can get those put in there.
It's on my list of things to add to our
Yeah,
action plan, actually.
yeah.
I have just a couple of specific, sort of in the middle here. I think the big red dot is the airport.
The airport is just below the big red dot. So the big 31, and there's Bay Colony just south.
It's,
That's the north-south runway, or I'm
oh,
sorry,
okay,
east-west.
it's right there, okay.
And the third dot down from the big dot is Pine Hill area.
Yes,
On Kruger there.
yeah.
And then
So there
there's
is a little frontage there at the airport, that little piece there. And that's
Right.
currently zoned commercial as well.
That's about where there's some big storage units there. Right?
Yeah, the
Storage
hangars.
units and whatever else
And
they're
is the
doing there.
dot to the red dot to the far south, is that basically where the Bargies, is that where Bargies is?
The one on Crestwell, the square, right on
No.
31.
Farther south. I don't think
Oh, that
no,
skinny
that is
piece?
Creswell. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
misread that. I
that's
got
Kings.
it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
That's right.
And then toward the north, again, I'm not sure why we have commercial there. The big blue recreation, that's probably primarily Barnes Park,
That
right?
is Barnes Park, the county park.
And then what's on the east side of that is a bit confusing because I think that's where the market is.
Mhm.
And then there's a huge commercial residential for Eastport. I mean, that goes,
Yeah, and so we used to have the village in the updated zoning ordinance changed the village district a little bit because we basically allowed all the residential everywhere that was zoned village and then only
Yeah.
commercial along 31, M88 and Barnes Park Road. And so the biggest problem is this parcel that's big in pink that's on the east side of the road is all one parcel. And so this may have to be an exception to the rule if you want to put commercial on the front and residential on the back of it or something like that. Or we have a better discussion about what commercial residential means to you for future development there.
Do we have to have all of these zones? Do we have to have
Nope.
commercial, industrial?
No, I mean, you can, you're writing it right now. So we want to look at the survey information we have and come up with a plan. We're also going to get more public input. Once we have this map, we'll get more public input on the map to make sure that the planning commission was headed in the right direction.
And
Yeah.
I would assume that when we would do that, we would also have the supporting
Correct.
documents like you
Right.
mentioned with ag and so on and so forth.
Correct.
Yeah, that seems like a huge, I'm with you on that. I mean, that's a huge commercial residential area. That's kind of it's a bit of a target on our backs, I'm afraid.
Well, and in this day and age, that's the kind of thing that draws attention.
Exactly,
Oh, I have the footprint to do this.
right. Okay,
So it seems like our next review, we have this. We can maybe, other than the overlay you talked about, we can come back and see what that looks like. But then have this again, but then look at all these definitions next to it.
Right, exactly.
Start to converge on what we want to try to, where we want to go with it.
Yeah. And that's what I was hoping to get out of this conversation. I didn't want us to just say, this is what I think you should do. I kind of wanted you to look at what you had and make some modifications and get your feedback. So I feel like I understand what you're saying. I'll go back, we'll make some changes, we'll provide some text to go along with it.
And
And
kind of
then,
like the definition for each of
Yeah.
these, and then we can discuss whether or not
Yeah.
that we're in agreement for.
yeah. Does that meet with what we're thinking for them?
Yeah.
Agreed. But good start. And I like the simplicity, a little more, fewer.
Yeah, makes it from, somebody that does what I do every day, this makes it much easier
Good.
to know what I'm getting into before I go.
Right. Can, sort of a quick glance and then you can dig
Yeah,
into
because
it.
the line is not ambiguous. It is not which way it printed or which way the paper's folded. It goes to the line.
Yeah. And so some of the conversations about this future land use and the districts, even, I had already mentioned some today, will go into the action item table. So this is kind of my starting list of items to move forward, but it's definitely going to get built upon based on what comes out of this future land use, because since you're interested in updating it. So I think that, you've reviewed the action items if anybody has any additional comments, but this is right now really a changing list based on every meeting we have and talk about for it. But
I'm sorry, these are your action items list, is that?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the action item list is, my intent with that is what you can accomplish in 5 years and to be specific items. So some of these items are still, you can say if you did them or not, but if you look through your current master plan, it's like coordinate with the road commission and do these things. Well, in good government, you should be doing all those things anyways. And they just really water down and make it difficult and overwhelming to find out exactly what planning commission you need to do to move this plan forward. So even though, this has 6 items on it, that's still a lot to accomplish. When you think about a zoning amendment, how long does that typically take to get through the process, right?
Years.
So, yeah, in best case scenario is 6 months, and that's the planning commission working really hard on it with no other applications and nothing else to talk about. And so I liked it. I don't want an exhaustive list that goes on for pages, preferably. I'm happy to add in some larger items that may need to be added in here to give guidance for the next time you're reviewing the master plan. Maybe you need to add some tasks, those really big projects. There might be a couple items we can check off, but we also need to keep in mind that none of us may be here in 5 years to know why that was on the list and to say we're doing this to move something else forward. So if you have some of those bigger projects or, you know, a 20-year vision part of it, we can put those in a list, just not as a specific action item. We need some smaller goals in there.
I really like the non-motorized. It's a very specific recreation type project. But I did also, for our earlier conversation, have strengthening agricultural. I know that's not an action item, but how can we, I don't know if that fits into your future use, but how do we build that up? I mean, it's, when you look at this map, you know, it's eyeballing 2/3 of the township. We spend a lot of time worried about what's up here and not thinking as much what's going on down there. And I think we should really be encouraging that and thinking about the premier agriculture and protecting that. And, you know, again, we don't want it going to some other use. Just been hearing about the horrors of renewable energy all over the state. Don't get me wrong, I'm supportive of renewable energy, but huge issue for townships
Well,
Right.
data centers is.
or data centers.
That's a big
Yes, exactly.
Well, and things are even as simple as workforce housing, where do we want it
Mhm,
in regards to our zoning map?
mhm.
Or density housing of any
That's
kind?
one thing I had down as a big one is density.
Yes.
Because it seems like we've had some things that have been brought forward lately, and no one's in favor of that density there.
Right.
So where?
So
As
where,
we look
yeah.
at these definitions, I think we also need to consider as an action item towards the future, you know, where does the community see this being able to be allowed?
Yeah, that was good too. I like that one as well. How do we address that? How do we get the input on that?
Because it can be as simple as on agricultural properties. I know there's some townships that have said, hey, if you know, if it means that you can keep your rural character, and you have X amount of acres, we'll let you carve out this small corner and have a higher density of workforce or affordable housing there so that you can retain the bulk of that property in its rural character. And I don't think we have. And I just don't think we currently lay that out in our zoning ordinance.
No, I agree, for sure. I think we could do a better job of that. And I think this is the perfect opportunity to do it.
Okay.
Another thing, the air park, right now, it looks like it's under, so we're just saying this is future, it's not current, it's future. So if something ever happened to the air park, we're saying, though it's no longer designated as an airport, we would want that area to be agriculture, is what we're saying, correct?
Right.
So it's not the current zoning or because the air park kind of falls under its own, we have ordinances around it today, but they're pretty limited. I mean, we tried to manage things. There's like when they have the, you know, they have the fly in and stuff like that. They have to come for a special use permit for doing those. And so I'm trying to reconcile that with this, I guess is my point.
I was just trying to remember, you know, when there was all the big hubbub around it, I remember we said, master plan time, that's what we need to be addressing some of these things, but we haven't.
Well, and that's where we're gonna want to address it on the future land use map and what that means and what that looks like. So we've put together kind of, you know, the background information. So now what do you want to do? Right? Planning
Yeah, it's a good
commission,
question.
like,
I don't remember.
Well, that's your question, right? It's agricultural now is what we have it
yeah, I
with
mean,
with a residential strip through the middle of it, but.
yeah, so the current future land use map is similar to your proposed, and do you want to, you know, keep it that way, make changes? And you don't have, you can think about it if you need to. Maybe that's what maybe we focus our next meeting specific on something like the airport, Torch Lake Village and Eastport Village, and that's what the planning commission is going to talk about, those areas in the future land use map. And based on the descriptions of the districts. Maybe that'll help facilitate that conversation.
I think we should put an ad in the newspaper stating what we will be talking about. I think that this is like the hot topic that gets people all riled up, like, hey, this is what your land is now. Are you interested in what we want to do with it? Get people riled up and get them in here.
That's what we
I will.
want.
And when we have the, whatever final map is, not
Mm-hmm.
final, but the one that we're proposing, we're going to have a hearing anyway, right?
Right, you eventually will have a public hearing on the draft before it's adopted, but we wanted to have another kind of open
work-
house
Yeah,
or
workshop type
or
thing.
something to get feedback specific to the map and to the action items for the public to be able to come in this summer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, Laura, we could put in the notice, right, that to be discussed.
Right,
I think you could definitely wordsmith it to actually get people in.
Put it in the notice and we could put something else on the website about,
And I don't want to get people riled up. I want to get them, involved. Because
right,
it
But I-
really affects everyone.
no
But I
rotten
think-
vegetables, please.
I think clarity in general gets people to say, okay, well, I own this parcel and it's shaded this and these are the allowable usage. And if they really have something that we need to think about or consider or, whatever, that's the type of feedback that we would want to come and say, look, I own X parcel, you've got it shaded as this. What if we could do these things with it and we'd never thought of it, because we've taken each color and broken it down as to a simplistic form of this is what
Right.
the future would look like in these areas.
Full page ad, color.
okay. I will talk to the township board.
See if that's in our budget.
I can't make that meeting.
No, I mean, that's great. I know that all along you've said you want to hear from the public. And so, and we kind of had talked about either workshops specific to the airport was one of those projects specific. So I think,
It'll create a buzz when we put this out there, in the summer. There's going to be a lot of activity around the airport. Obviously physically at the airport, but there's going to create a lot of activity with just discussions around people.
Yeah, and I prefer to hear it at the meeting instead of after it happens and nobody had a chance to.
Yeah, all the
know.
hate mail writing in. So what's the best timing for doing that and should we do it? I don't have a problem with the idea. I mean, take it in chunks and say, we're going to consider these areas and
We have to have
Yeah.
a combined plan, kind of like a first draft.
what I would say is let me bring back a updated map with the districts to next month's meeting. And then maybe we even have June's meeting to kind of finalize a draft, at least have some consensus at the planning commission level. And then we can either just solicit during our regular meetings input. We can do that with the legal notice, but we also have the constant contact to push out what we're talking about at the meeting. So we can have something specific about, input on that. And then the best time to do some sort of an open house for the input is probably September. Maybe the end of August, but you get a lot of people out of town because people are getting ready for back to school. The kids are going back and you realize you need to take a vacation type of thing. So usually after school gets in and things kind of settle back in, at least for the people that have the families with the kids in the community to do that, usually works out and you get it before the snowbirds leave, kind of mid-September would be my goal for the open house. So I'm going to push you hard to get a draft done. If we get an opportunity to have some specific planning commission meetings to talk about different items, we can kind of either do it maybe more informally than like a public hearing, right? We can do some little components depending on what that looks like. So, but I'd like to have, my personal preference would be to have a document that people can review and give feedback instead of saying, what would you like to see? Say, this is what we're looking at, provide what you like, what you don't like, and suggested changes to it. to try to narrow in on it. I mean, that's my preference, and I find to be the best way to help the township grow and get a better map. So, does that sound like a good plan? Okay.
So those were the two agenda items, I think, right? The
Yes.
map, action plan, really, it's not on there, but it's part of that, and implementation, which is what we're talking about. So have another review next month of the map and any, again, I think we're all supportive of what we have so far in the action plan, is that right? I am suggesting adding something around agricultural, but I don't have a good,
I'll add it in there and we can keep on refining it. And then I think the density comment is good too. And even if I put it on the action plan so that when we're looking at the future land use map next month, you can really think about what areas of the township make sense for the planning commission. And then based on the feedback that we've received, where that makes sense.
I'd also like to add one around the, more public access. Yes, God darn it. The public access, identifying, I think it's been on my list this whole time, identifying those locations, road end. We can make it more general than that. And maybe it could even go in with the non-motorized activity one.
like road end access or
Yeah.
how to utilize it or,
Yeah, identifying it and determining what's out there so we can decide how to make it available for people, maybe.
Okay.
I also, which if we talk about the future land use and talk about the villages, I have some thoughts on what a hamlet is.
What is?
What a hamlet is.
Oh,
Denise raised the topic
yeah.
and I made some train of thought ideas. So to discuss next, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think it would be good to talk about the villages and Torchport, maybe at the next meeting or the one after, specific areas for the future land use map.
If we can publicize it somehow so that people know that that's,
Yeah.
or put it on the agenda, I guess, for people who read the agenda.
Yeah, that's what I usually do, is put what the topics are.
Mhm.
That would work.
All right. Any other comments, thoughts, input, complaints on master plan? I think that takes us to other reports. Sarah, anything else? You included your
Let me.
zoning report in the packet.
No, I don't have anything additional. I don't think it's been a slow beginning of the year. I shouldn't say that out loud. But, the snow and then the snowstorm slowed everybody down for permitting and things. So it's starting to pick up.
Okay. ZBA, we met last week on a variance for a deck on Torch Lake, and that variance request was denied. And I don't think there's anything else. So far, we don't have any other.
You had the meeting, so you had a special meeting April
Oh, that's right.
1st for
I
a
was not
wetland
allowed to
setback.
participate.
Yes, yep. For a wetland setback. So that's the first one that we've had variance request related to. We have a setback requirement from wetlands. So this was a property down on Yellow Birch that
Look it up. It's a long way away.
that had they received an eagle permit to do a little bit of filling, but that meant that the house also is in the wetland setback. But there's a very small building envelope on the property.
Okay. Andy, anything from the board?
Yes, the last board meeting, a couple things of discussion. And these people weren't aware, there were some issues surfacing around the cemetery. In particular, there was some destruction, destruction might be too strong a word, but some headstones were moved off of their base and kind of relocated because of snow plowing. So there was a fair amount of discussion around, because the township has been trying to get the cemetery cleaned up and pruned up and more usable. And this kind of issue occurred obviously during the winter months, with somebody went in and plowed. So now the board is looking at ways to try to still allow access via foot in the winter when there's snow. So what signage might be needed? Is there any kind of a gate type of thing that would need to be done in the winter so people wouldn't drive up there, because you can't necessarily see where the road is? And there's all different. So the board's looking at that. Another thing that some material discussion around the Parks and Recreation Plan. Obviously, the board will be looking for that along with master plan ultimately. But there's discussion about a potential Parks and Recreation Fund being put on the ballot in the fall or late summer, fall so the board is considering that to fund an amount of, currently the discussion is around 1 mil, which would equate to about $400,000 that would be put into a fund for future use of parks and recreational types activities. So things like the day park, the nature preserve, maintenance of things would be put in there. So just discussion item that's being surfaced.
Great. Okay. Do we have other public comment?
We do. You have Herb or Roth?
I'm the only one left, I think.
Oh, did you
I
leave,
think the
Michael?
other person's gone. I just kind of wanted to make a comment on the Parks and Recreation also. You know, can you hear me? Okay, sorry. Yeah, I just want to make a comment on the Parks and Recreation. And at the previous board meeting, we mentioned about the funding for it. And, you know I came in kind of concerned about where we were with the funding for the Parks and Recreation. It seems like we're still pretty much on the beginning phases of determining what is going to be on that budget even. I'm a big advocate for the Naquima Trail. That's going to have some expense, but a lot of that, from my understanding, will be borne by the Tart and Naquima people themselves. The point I wanted to make was, it seems to me that we should be really have a better plan on where the Parks and Recreation expenses are going to go prior to committing any funding to it. I mean, in most communities, the general fund is what's used to fund the Parks and Recreation. And our general fund, I think, is pretty well off. Every year it makes a little bit more. So I guess, again, my point is to don't put the cart before the horse, and get an idea of what the expenses will be prior to, committing, because I'm afraid people aren't going to vote for a mill. I mean, they're already paying 4 mills for ambulance and fire, 1 mill for the roads, and another mill for Parks and Recreation. And it gets very expensive. And I don't want to fund something that doesn't have to be funded as of yet.
Thank you.
That's it.
Is that all?
He's not here. He's not hiding somewhere.
Okay. Very good. Concerns of the commission? I have none. Members? Additional comments? Nope. All right. Motion to adjourn?
I have one comment before you adjourn. Can I ask a question?
All right.
In regards to my plan, I just, in respect of your contract statement, if I was to come back with a simplified version to make sure that there would be less things that potentially could be missed on the so-called contract, would that keep the overall site plan still alive? Or would it be best to come in with the whole master plan?
Quickly, again, I think we said you can do it in phases and we can amend the site plan later on, but best to have something ready for approval that we can actually approve so you can move forward.
Right.
Okay.
That will be, my goal is to have the whole package, but if something's getting hung up, then I can revert back to a simple plan.
That would, yes.
Yeah, but I just didn't want, if I went that route, I didn't want that to ruin the whole master.
I think it's fair to say it doesn't foreclose future amendments or additions.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion to adjourn,
I'll make that motion.
second,
I'll second it.
in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:55, I think.
8:57.